Tabby Cat coming back live as always. Well, pre-recorded, never edited. I believe editing is wrong. You got something to say it. Doesn't have to be perfect. People will listen if the message is good, right? Anyways, today we'll be talking about how the world is viewed from different aspects of culture and parts of society. We'll start with science, because there's some pretty interesting stuff that scientists at the highest of levels are arguing, while the majority of scientists who are at the lowest of levels don't agree with it, either for lack of understanding or lack of want to understand, or and I think the most likely is they understand if anybody goes against the grain, anybody goes against the norm, they're outcasts and eventually lose all the handouts that they've gotten before. So why lose all your handouts over something that's pretty empowering when you can make some money yourself? I guess that's their thinking. Essentially, what most quantum physicists today believe is that our world is essentially a frequency wave on top of a frequency wave on top of another frequency wave, and there are infinite frequency waves along the electromagnetic spectrum, or a number of waves so massive that it's incalculable and unimaginable in terms of the human psyche, which, you know, on first glance is okay, that's cool, but what does that really mean? Well, let's take how holograms and holographic images act as a starting point. A holographic image is nothing more than a series of waves interacting with one another through intersecting points along those waves. And when light is shined on a certain piece of a hologram, a light is shined on it, and then that reflection is shined by another light, and so it's re-refracted again, and then you get this 3D image. And essentially that's what scientists believe is the process going on in the world that we see. In other words, what we see isn't really what we get. Science tells us that the scope of human vision is only as long as visible light. And if you look at visible light on the scale of frequency ranges, it is such a small band that it's almost irrelevant. All these other frequencies are going on around us. We can only perceive what is invisible light. There are certain ends of the spectrum that we can see above and below that, but it's so limited in terms of, you know, what we're told to believe, that a lot of the times the whole picture or the whole story, as a matter of fact, because the picture itself is irrelevant, it's the story, gets lost in translation. And whether or not it's correct, through no other reason than just a blind belief in the combination of there is an intelligent design, there is evolution, And quantum physics is very real. And the theories they've proven are very real, very provable, that the world behaves like a hologram. Not to say that what you touch and feel isn't there. It's just that that's a construct of the human mind. The energy itself is there. When you're touching a chair, you're touching an energy field. You're touching an infinite series of intersecting waves in an even more infinite and even more intersecting amount of broader waves. So essentially, the world we live in is wave after wave after wave, constantly moving, always changing places. I mean, you can look this up. It's modern electron theory. They say that atoms and organisms at their most infinitesimal of levels behave as one of two things, as opposites. Either they're the observable, the particles, the things that we see, the things that our five senses can pick up on. But when one isn't trying to place them in a box, which is essentially what these senses attempt to do, in order for us to interact physically with the world, it has to be in a box, because that makes it its most simplest form. And in its simplest form, we can reach out and touch it. We can reach out and we can see it. You know, all these taste, touch, smell, hearing, all those things, all the five senses, they're all limited by design, because they allow us to interact. But that doesn't define our reality. Our reality is defined by how we behave in a universal scale, on the infinite line of progression. You can interact with things, that's fine. But if one can look deeper, then the world just, it starts to make sense. All these things that seem completely unconnected, you know, start to paint a pretty clear picture. Like, in terms of religion, you know, if you take the stories themselves and look at them symbolically and not literally, if you don't take everything that you hear verbatim, and you start to do a little bit of background searching, you can find that the popular religions all hold ground after some sort of major conflict between people. And what happens? The religion that was in power before is always manipulated and changed to the new religion through the burning of ancient texts. And that happens historically and in the present. Because anytime there's a war, there's always a destruction of some major aspect of the previous culture for no other reason than they are demonized. And everybody's told that they are the enemy. So by declaring them demons and the enemy in a religious society, which is what we have, which is fine, it's this separation. You know, putting things in boxes allows for people to perceive differences when there aren't any. And when you have a perceived difference, you allow for conflict. And when you allow for conflict, especially over differences of belief, you know, it comes to a point where there's no more discussion. You either separate yourself from that person, or you don't allow them to say the things that you don't want them to say. So I think if one observes nature, you can see and feel the interconnectedness of everything. The bird is working for the plants, the insects are working for the plants are working for the birds and the insects, so that the birds can get the nutrients they need from the plants and the insects, while the insects can get the nutrients they need from the plants. And from the byproducts of the birds who eat them. It's a completely symbiotic relationship. There's nothing parasitic about nature. There are parasites in nature, but they act symbiotically. Human beings are the only, as of now, organisms on Earth who, on the grand scheme of things, don't give back to nature. The only thing we give back is carbon dioxide, and carbon dioxide is being demonized. Carbon dioxide helps the plants grow. And when the plants grow, we get more oxygen. Carbon monoxide's bad, but carbon dioxide is what plants use to breathe. Well, unfortunately, through deforestation and an overall belief in modern suburbia, we're losing our wildlife, we're losing our plant life, we're losing all these things that natural processes work to reinforce. And what are we doing? Well, as a people, we're flipping nature on its head, and we're trying to make it bend to our needs. Well, I'm sorry, but nature's been around infinitely, and humans have only been around for, depending on what you believe, either a couple 100,000 years, 10,000 years, or 4,000 years. Either way, on an infinite time scale, that's like taking a piss. So I think we need to get in touch more with what's been going on in the grand scheme of things, as opposed to our finite human experiences. You know, life isn't all about making the best for you, it's all about making the life better for the people of your bloodline longer down the road. Would you rather have your future seed living in a world completely operated by people who are robotic? You know, they can only see one certain type of programming, and that's it. And anything that goes against that certain type of programming is either completely ignored or eradicated. That's what robots do. Something is either ignorable or it needs eradication. It needs removal. Nature doesn't work that way. Nature helps things grow, helps things thrive, or it allows the natural forces within it to eradicate it. So you always have two ends of the scale, and everybody's trying to operate in between. But why would you allow for some bad when all of nature is good? No, I think everything happens for some sort of reason, and that reason is unknown, but the signs are there. The connectedness of everything is there, and it's through these frequency waves that everything is connected. Energy is constant. That's what science tells us, and the human soul is a constant, which religion tells us. So what is energy but the human soul manifested in a frequency wave? So this right now is one of many infinite experiences I will have in my life, as will you, if you choose to look at things this way.